Hi everyone, I'm back with the next anatomy video. Lower leg. In the lower leg, there are 3 groups of muscles focusing on different parts of the leg. The posterior section, the lateral or outside facing section, and anterior or forward facing section. The first section, the posterior section or calves, is made up of 2 muscles, the soleus and the gastrocnemius. The soleus is the biggest muscle of the 2, but lays underneath the gastrocnemius, so you mostly only see its side, just like the brachialis in the arm. In fact, there are a couple things about the leg muscles that remind me a lot of the arm that I'll bring up throughout the video. The soleus and the brachialis are both the powerhouse of action, they're both flat, and they are both under a much bigger muscle. Shape-wise, it looks like an asymmetrical juggling club, but tilted towards the inside of the body. The top of it connects to the head of the fibula and a little bit to the side of the tibia. About 3/4 down the leg, it slips into the Achilles tendon. The Achilles tendon then connects to the calcaneus, this heel bone right here. It, along with the gastrocnemius, are designed to do plantar flexion, or to point the toes down. So when you get on your tiptoes, the calves are obvious. The soleus is asymmetrical, so there is this diagonal tilt towards the midline of the body. Remember when I said that the lower leg reminds me of the arm? The gastrocnemius has 2 heads, one that's higher than the other, causing this offset angle towards the inside of the leg. Comparing it to the arm, the soleus is like the brachialis, with it extending past the bones at the sides, and especially with it being the strongest muscle of the 2 when it comes to plantar flexion. Then, the gastrocnemius is like the biceps, with its 2 heads. Whereas the hamstrings connect to the side of the tibia, the gastrocnemius go up in between the upside down U, and they connect to the back of the femur, right here. Together with the hamstrings and the gastrocnemius, they make an empty diamond shape behind the knee. Generally, the gastrocnemius stops at about halfway down the lower leg and then goes into the Achilles tendon. This can vary going higher or lower if you want, as Proco mentioned, but just make sure that there's a good amount of tendon. Interestingly enough, there are no muscles on the inside of the lower leg. The rest of the muscles that work to turn the foot all around are centered predominantly on the lateral side and a bit of the front. So, if you cut a cross section, it kind of looks like a bean or like a fat comma. Round in the back, round in the side, and flat in the medial side of the tibia. So let's look at the lateral side. The first thing we see are the calves muscles, the gastrocnemius and the soleus. Connecting to the side of the fibula and tibia, we have all of these extensor and flexor muscles. These are like the forearm muscles, but instead of a bullet shape, their overall form is more rectangular. Drawing this big rectangle here right up against the calves, and then to the front of the shin, we split the rectangle in half. The half near the front is then split again. This is more of a quarter split. The anterior tibialis muscle is the larger section, and then this tiny sliver next to it is called the extensor digitorum. The section next to the extensors and anterior tibialis are called the fibularis or peroneal muscles. Most people call them fibularis. I prefer to call them peroneal, and I'll do that through the rest of the video. But don't worry, these 2 words mean the exact same thing. The peroneal muscles are 2 heads, the peroneal longus and the peroneal brevis, just like the semimembranosus and the semitendinosus. They even look very similar. They connect to the tibia and a little bit of the fibula before stretching down to the ankle and wrapping behind it. In fact, if you strain this muscle by walking too much, especially on an incline, you can give yourself peroneal tendonitis, which I believe I gave myself once, and it wasn't fun. Right next to the peroneals, we got this long line of the extensors. I'm going to make it blue here. And then once the extensors hit the ankle, they split off into the toes. And then right next to the extensors, we have the anterior tibialis. If it ever starts to get overwhelming because there are a lot of muscles here, it's split into thirds. The calves, the lateral side, and the anterior side. Now, to the front of the shin, the biggest muscle you'll see is the anterior tibialis. The front of the tibia has this T shape at the head. The anterior tibialis connects right up against that, stretches across the shin at an angle, before tapering to a tendon to the side of the foot and then wrapping under it. This muscle is in charge of dorsiflexion, or lifting the foot up, and inverting the foot inward. Right next to that, you'll see the extensors. When these get down to the foot, the tendons will split off into the toes, just like the extensors in the hand. These extensors help with dorsiflexion, and they're also primarily in charge of flexing the toes. The big toe is reserved to the extensor hallucis longus. This is a tiny sliver seen right between the extensors and the anterior tibialis, right around here. There's also a peroneal tertius muscle next to the ankle in between the extensors and the peroneals, but I don't think you really see it in the leg too much. Also, a thing with dorsiflexion, since it's in charge of helping you lift your foot up, it's superficial, so you can see it. If you lift your foot up, you'll see a little tendon about where your ankle is. But since it's also in charge of helping you invert your foot, if you lift your foot and then invert it a little bit, you'll see it even better. Right next to the extensors, you're going to see a little bit of the peroneal longus and brevis. From the medial side, you will see soleus, and then on top of that, you will see the gastrocnemius. The peroneals are in charge of everting the foot. Alright, now that we got all the muscles laid out, there's some general things I've noticed about how the overall group of muscles interact with each other. Tip 1. From the point the gastrocnemius becomes tendon to the points all the other muscles reach their tendons, line up in this sharp diagonal. Tip 2. The hamstring tendons line up with the peroneal muscles. The ITB then lines up with the extensors. Together, they kind of look like this car seat buckle. Now that we've wrapped up with this video, I want to give you a bit of an exercise. What I would recommend doing is going to Inner Body. I'll leave a link in the description. And to get a 3D image that you can turn around of the muscles in the legs. And then draw it from the back, draw it from the side, draw it from the front, and then try to turn it around from different angles, just like a quarter way from either side, and see how the muscles will overlap each other in that way. Just get into your head what muscles are next to what other muscle, and make sure you're keeping in mind where they connect. Once you get that really good, try looking at reference pictures, Proco can be a good one, of legs, or even just look at your own, wiggle your ankle around, see which muscles pop up, and then try to figure out which muscle that would connect to. Remembering what muscle is in charge of what. So if you're lifting your ankle up and you see a tendon, it has to be one of the muscles that assist in dorsiflexion, which means that it's either the anterior tibialis or the extensors. And that should help you learn a lot better, and it's just a lot of repetition. This is my first time giving an exercise, so I hope this makes sense and it's helpful. If you like the video, stick around. I've got one more anatomy video coming up. It's the feet. That'll be interesting. I haven't done a foot study in a while. If you like this video, consider coming over and subscribing, and I'll make other videos a lot like this. I hope you have a great day.